We reconvened the meeting of May 6th, I believe it was. This time, I'll turn the meeting over to Vice Chair Lee.
Would you bow your head in prayer, please? Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you so much for this beautiful day that you've given us. We thank you for our county, and we thank you for the opportunity to serve it. Dear God, tonight is an important night in the life of our county as our budget is being presented to us. I thank you for the staff that has worked so diligently on this, and I pray that you will give us wisdom, guidance, and understanding. And may the words of our mouth and the meditations of our heart be acceptable in your sight. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. Would you join me with the pledge, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Chair Lee. Commissioner Godwin will not be with us tonight. He's out of town. So at this time, this is for our budget summary. We'll turn the meeting over to Mr. Causey.
While I'm getting set up, staff is going to pass out copies to the public. We've got 50. I certainly want to make sure my department heads and the fire departments get copies of this. One of the things that may be helpful is to talk about the process of what we're doing here while everybody is getting situated. Tonight is May 20th. This is the budget presentation. What you have previously approved for us to do is we will, if it's not already been published, publish in the next 6 days a notice of public hearing. The public hearing will be held the first Monday night in June, and I actually think that is June the 3rd. So people have talked to me and felt like they might not have their voices heard. There is ample opportunity for anybody after tonight that wants a voice heard to be heard. So after that, I presume that the board will then schedule whatever number of budget workshops that you need in order to approve a budget. The statutes encourage us to have the budget approved by July 1st. Once the board has gotten to the point that you're satisfied with the budget, staff would ask you to give us 1 week to prepare the final budget ordinance before it is delivered. So I think we're in that. This is probably the first budget message I have ever presented will require an intermission. I do not foresee completing this process in less than an hour and a half and feel like I will be doing good to get it done within that part. There's a lot of information to talk about and a lot of clarifications to provide. And if you're okay, and I have done several things, I've actually tried to number the pages where I can tell people where I am so everybody can keep up and follow along. Do you have any questions, Mr. Chairman, before I get started?
No, sir.
Well, I am going to get started. Some of my colleagues have encouraged me to take my time, that I have a tendency to talk a little bit too fast when I'm doing budget presentations, and I'm going to endeavor to take time and emphasize those points that need to be emphasized. I am going to read the introduction. Fiscal year 2023-2024 has been somewhat more stable economically than the previous 2 to 3 years. Significant increases in inflation have lessened, but inflation and supply chain issues are still present. The county continues to have challenges recruiting for many of our skilled positions, a circumstance similarly found in the private sector. The good news is that we are working diligently to improve our recruiting techniques and have begun to see some success in certain areas. Because of economic circumstances, we recommended a tax increase of 5 cents in 2022. This recommendation was rejected by the Board of Commissioners in 2022, and this decision was supported by the local media and many private citizens who offered words of support. The general feeling at the time was that the public was facing inflation and general cost increases across the board in their everyday lives. A county tax increase was just too much of a burden to bear. Those same voices that spoke in 2022 are more adamant today about not having a tax increase. Though ironically, the county government is impacted by the same increases in our operational costs. We have heard the people. Therefore, a tax increase beyond the revenue neutral rate of 0.629, and we're proposing 0.625, will not be proposed. Fortunately, we have the cash reserves to support the level of county government herein proposed until decisions are made on how to develop the future 2025-2026 budget. This gives the board an entire year to plan for succeeding budgets. Further, this budget message, we have added additional information and clarifications which may assist the board and citizens as they evaluate the future needs and directions. This budget message is long and there's a lot of information. The work that has been done in this budget is intended for people that want to understand, people that are interested in just the one sentence bite that they can repeat. Probably will not find a lot of entertainment in this budget. That we are trying to be substantive to give people good understanding and clarifications. However, we all know that the public has a variety of opinions. When we try to provide detailed information, sometimes they want to tell us that we're grandstanding. So either we're grandstanding or we're not getting enough information. Sometimes it gets difficult. The first thing I want to talk about for just a minute or two are the significant accomplishments of fiscal year 2023. The first thing that you will see is you will see a chart that indicates that we have gotten state or federal funding in the amount of $954,424. You can see the list of 5 projects that are listed on this sheet. $15,604,000 was available for water system improvements. The Ivanhoe project has the potential of adding 41 miles of water lines. We expect the project to be bid this summer. Other projects just completed or being planned will yield another 53 miles of water line. As of February 2024, our water customer base has increased to 6,834 customers. Projects under development have the potential to yield 1,069 additional customers. Almost 60 million gallons of water were sold during the last 12 months. Total funding for the water system improvements over the last several years is almost $49 million, and I think that is almost all grant.
That's 600 million gallons, is that right?
Yes, sir, 600 million. If I said 60, I apologize.
Yeah.
Okay? Economic development. One of the things the board has done in recent years is there have been a lot of emphasis on economic development, and work continues in that way. We are in a position that we have not been before. We are now in the position that we actually have property that is ready to be developed, and some of the property is continuing to be, and that's what we're talking about in this paragraph. And I am on page 3, number 3. I do call your attention. I will start in, I'll start it in. Finally, staff has been working to close out 2 building reuse grants. All of these projects will support economic growth and benefit the county by increasing the tax base and supporting additional jobs. We have in recent years completed a project in Roseboro. Our goal is to develop projects anywhere in the county where needed infrastructure exists or can be feasibly developed. We've got the property that we have acquired here in the industrial park in Clinton. We've got the property that is being developed in Newton Grove. I think at some point in time in the near future, Ray Jordan will want to talk to you to tell you about some of the development plans that are ongoing. Activity is taking place. We recently had a property in Roseboro, and that property has been sold. So we are trying to be extremely active. We would like to develop properties anywhere in the county that we can have the infrastructure to support the potential businesses that are there. And there is an effort being made in that area.
How about in Viva, what it brought into the county?
Originally, help me, David, originally in Viva was a $120 million investment.
That's correct. And they're continually, this past year, bought a whole lot more equipment that went on the tax book.
And that brings in what kind of tax revenue?
Well, the equipment's listed each year, so it's taxed at 82.5 cents. So it does bring in significant revenue for the county.
Thank you.
We'll tell you just to back up, to give people information. When I came here in 2010, the property out on 403 had already been purchased. There was a lot of criticism of the county owning property. Had the county not owned that property, we would not have had the opportunity to have in vivo $120 million to the tax base. Thus, you can see what is important in the counties in the southeast that we talk to will tell you how important it is to not only have sites that can be developed, but you're probably going to see today that we're going to talk about figuring out how to have buildings that are proposed and developed and ready for occupancy. Implementation of the market study. The completed market study was presented to the Board of Commissioners in November of 2023. Please see Exhibit J, which outlines the specific recommendations for its implementation, and I would encourage you just to glance at that for reference, and then I will let you come back to that. But we're trying to give detailed information and provide information that people can see exactly what we are trying to do.
Page 45.
45, yes, sir. A 4% cost of living adjustment was included in the recommendation. The total cost of implementing the market study is approximately $3,800,000. Per the resolution that was passed, and the proposed budget also includes the cost associated with career ladders for telecommunicators and paramedics. When we did the budget, or what you passed in November, you basically passed the budget, and what we said was we were going to include this in the budget presentation that came in the spring, and that's what we have done. The new website. One of the things the commissioners were privileged to is Jean Coe and her team and Chris Rayner and everybody that was involved at the beginning of the month prepared you or provided you with a session on what the new web page was going to be like. That presentation was filmed, and I think that information is now on our web and has been sent to all of the departments. So there is some good information on the proposed web page. And I am on page 4. The new website is designed for ongoing adaptation to evolving needs. In addition to redesigning the county's main website, the web development project also includes open forums, gov delivery, engagement, visual identity. I'm not going to go into any more detail on this. The reason is simple. All that information is now on the webpage for people to see. The new webpage offers a more user-friendly experience, aiming to be responsive, accessible, reliable, and participatory. We encourage residents to explore the new features by visiting, and it's got the address in June of 2024. The information is still on the existing web, but we have not updated the new web page. So I think that is something. I think as we talk and get along in this message, you're going to find there is a growing interest and emphasis that we're placing on technology and technology-related functions to provide better customer service to our citizens.
If I may, from what I saw the night of the presentation, the citizens of Sampson County are going to enjoy this a lot. They're going to be able to do more things, more interaction with the government, get their questions answered, and be able to execute business that they were not able to before.
We have some smart people that have really worked on this, and we're thinking this is going to be the core. And there are all kinds of challenges with our existing webpage and how we're getting information. And this team has developed the webpage by having a lot of interactive communications with department heads and finding out. What I find a little bit interesting, this new system is also going to include the analytics necessary to be able to tell them what people are interested in are and try to provide more information when things are needed. Okay? I am moving on to page 5. Audit budget highlights, audit fund balance. The audit for the fiscal year ending June 30th, 2023 indicates that the general fund balance had grown to $37,677,156. This is an increase of $7,921,683 over the previous year and represents 43.44% of expenditures. The total net position increased by $18,391,880. This is a remarkable accomplishment, and we add to that the fact that there were no material weaknesses listed in the audit. The unassigned general fund balance as of June 30th, 2010 was $10,752,758. As of June 30th, 2023, the unassigned general fund balance is $24,731,831. This is an increase of approximately 130%. Some time ago, there was a news article that came out from an elected official was quoted as saying that my policies had gotten the county in a ditch. Well, then the information was wrong on two counts. Number one, I don't make policy. I'm an administrator and try to set up what the administrative policies that are needed to carry out the policies that the board has done. And then you look at the amount of money, I don't think, the county's got room for improvement, but I don't think we're in a ditch.
Mr. Causey, the unassigned general fund balance, could you expand upon that a little bit? Because it's not like we've got $37 million we can just go out and start spending.
I will get David to help me if I need it, but the $37 million is your total money in the general fund. A lot of that money is designated either for building reserves or a variety of projects that you may plan to develop. The $24 million is basically money that is there that is available depending on how the board decides they want to use it.
The money that we put aside for the Hopton School, that
would have come out of this balance right here. Yes, sir.
so that's assigned.
Yes. It would have been assigned at the time.
It's in the unassigned now.
It's back
It's
in the
part of, yes,
unassigned
it's part back of the unassigned now.
because they didn't get the,
Because they didn't get the grant
right.
to do it, so, but that's where the money's at right now.
I don't think we can emphasize enough how important it is that there were no material weaknesses. That is huge in an audit this large, and there were no material weaknesses. We have a lot to be proud of.
And the credit goes to the people working in the departments and the finance office that have made this happen.
Kudos to y'all.
Yeah.
Tax rate. The tax rate for last year was 82.5 cents. There has been continued diligence in the collection of property taxes. As noted above, our tax collection rate for last year was 97.68%, and we acknowledge and appreciate the work of our tax office. Based on the new property valuation, we are projecting a tax base of $7,036,110,841. The revenue neutral rate is 62.9 cents, and we are rounding this number down to 62.5% to be the proposed tax. We are projecting a 97% collection rate, okay? I won't spend a minute or two talking about the revenue neutral rate. I've had more discussions with more people in the last 3 to 4 weeks than I have on the entire budget for the entire year. So the revenue neutral rate does, and this is important, we want everybody to have a good understanding of this. State law requires that local governments publish a revenue-neutral tax rate in the budget following the completion of the general appraisal of the real property. The purpose of the revenue-neutral rate is to provide comparative information. The revenue-neutral rate, as defined by the statutes, is the rate that is estimated to produce revenue for the next fiscal year equal to the revenue for the fiscal year prior to revaluation. So basically what we're trying to do, the whole point of this is to make sure that we're not using smoke and mirrors to create a tax increase for anybody. For example, if your rate was 82 and we were proposing 75, that's still a tax increase compared to the 62.5 cents. This rate is then adjusted by a growth factor to the average percentage increase in the tax base since the last general appraisal. The reappraisal produced an estimated tax base of $7,036,110,841 for Sampson County. The estimated tax levy for the fiscal year 2024-2025 is $43,556,402. And the average growth factor since the last general reappraisal is 1.6%. Using the formula mandated by state law, the revenue neutral rate for Sampson County is 62.9 cents. We are recommending a tax rate of 62.5 cents. Theoretically, you can say that's a tax decrease. Based on the revenue neutral tax rate, some Sampson County taxpayers will pay higher taxes than last year due to higher property values, and some taxes will pay lower taxes due to lower values. The purpose of the revaluation is proportionally redistribute the tax rate. And make sure we understand that. There are a few people that even with the revenue neutral rate will pay higher taxes because their properties went up proportionally more than maybe some of their neighbors. And some of those neighbors may proportionally get a little bit of a break in what their payments will be. Based on the estimated tax base, a penny on the tax rate and a 97% collection rate generates $682,500. Based on these revenue neutral calculations, we also have reviewed the fire tax for the fire districts in Sampson County, as well as the supplemental current expense for the Clinton City schools, and we have adjusted their rates according to the revenue neutral tax rate. Here again, it's got to be reported anyway. Please note that we adjusted these rates upward to the nearest half cent, where we adjusted the county's tax rate down from 62.9. So what we're telling you is we took advantage of the privilege of rounding. So for the Clinton City Schools and the fire departments, if, for example, their tax rate for fire department was 7.6, we rounded it to 8, okay, in order. On the other hand, if it came out even on the half cent, they did not get a break from this. User fee adjustments. We are proposing the following rate increases for the water department. These increases are to cover the actual cost. Bear in mind, the water department is an enterprise and basically operates on its own. We want to increase the current cost for each 1,000 gallons of water from $4.85 to $5.15. We want to increase the cost of a 3/4 inch tap from $900 to $1,200. We want to increase the cost of a 1-inch tap from $1,000 to $1,700, and we're proposing to increase the cost of the connection fee from $50 to $125.
Mr. Collins, one thing I'd like to point out, Harnett County, 2 years ago, for a 3/4 inch tap was $2,500. So we're very reasonable with what we're doing. We were reasonable before, we're still reasonable.
I think Mr. Turlington, who is here, would tell you that basically these projected costs are intended to cover our cost, and there's not making any money. Many counties will try to assess some sort of impact fee in order to have some funds built up for future improvements or future repairs that they might need to make. Emergency service facilities construction. Sampson County's been working for years to build a new emergency services building. This building is complete. We're in the process of completing a storage facility that will be shared by both emergency services and the sheriff's department. Now we're getting into budget drivers, and this is something lots of people will be interested in. And for the commissioners, as a review, we're giving you information. We're not giving you everything in the budget, but we have made a diligent effort to give you everything that we think is significant or key or that you would have a particular interest in. Sales tax and interest income. We are projecting an increase in sales tax revenue of $668,997 and interest income of $550,000. Now, the good news in that is we haven't projected a lot of interest in a lot of years, and even though that may hurt us in some areas, it is good to see some interest income in. Property tax revenues. Property tax collections are expected to increase by $483,263. We are projecting a collection rate of 97%. The tax office does a good job of servicing our tax base. ARPA monies. We are not including ARPA monies as revenues. Through the board's leadership, we have utilized most ARPA monies for non-operating expenses, capital improvements. This approach will yield more long-term benefits from the monies received during a finite period. let me brag on the board just a minute. I think it was $12,300,000 we got, or $13,002,000, one of the two. But I think that the board, we used about $2 million for operating expenses, and the rest of that money has been invested in infrastructure that will give long-term benefits. I've been reading in recent days about some folks to our east who used $20 million for operating, and now they're trying to figure out how they're trying to make up the deficit. We tried through the diligence of the board and the direction to avoid doing that as much as possible. We did not want to leave ourselves in a hole from that standpoint. Fund balance appropriated. We are appropriating approximately $11,819,168 to balance the budget. We believe that the lapse salaries and benefits will cover approximately $1,900,000 of this deficit. So basically, we're proposing that you use $10 million of the $24 million for the fund balance and for the operating budget. Lawsuit. We spent a total of $350,275 for the Sheriff's Department employees' lawsuits. And I think we're essentially finished with that. I'm not going to tell you there's not another bill, but I do not think so. We have provided additional details regarding this matter in a subsequent session. Legal services. We're currently contracting for legal services. The current contract will terminate on June 30th, 2024. The board has authorized the hiring of a full-time attorney. That process has begun. COLAs and movement of salaries to midpoint. We are recommending a 3% cost of living adjustment to be effective on January 1st, 2025. The projected cost of this increase is $531,147. In addition, we are recommending that we allocate $747,700 in funding to assist employees in reaching the midpoint of their salaries. Health insurance benefits. The cost of health insurance for employees will increase in fiscal year 2024-25. The budget increase is equivalent to an additional $150 per employee per month. The county is now planning to spend $1,100 per month per employee for health insurance. In addition, we expect the employee's cost of health insurance to increase approximately 6% starting in July 2024. And I'd like to reiterate for my department heads to make a note of that and make sure that, the board has not spoken, but I want everyone to make sure that they understand a 6% increase is proposed in the budget. Capital outlay funding for public schools. The city school system has requested $2,607,000 in capital outlay funding, and the county schools has requested $5,273,776. We are projecting $1,671,500 to be available from the annual sales tax received and designated for school capital outlay projects. Therefore, the projected allocation for the Clinton City Schools will be $442,800 and the county schools $1,228,700. Current expense for the public schools. The county school system has requested an additional $1,037,650 for current annual operating expenses, and the city school system has requested an additional $495,175 for current annual operating expenses. We are required to fund both school systems at the same per student rate. Using our basic budgeting technique of assuring proportional funding for an operational expense based on the county general revenues, we are projecting available additional funding in the amount of $453,466. We are proposing to increase the funding for the county schools by $312,647 and the city schools by $140,819. This equates to funding of $1,353 per student. The total operating expenses for the county city schools is $3,851,991 and $10,633,227 for the county schools. Sampson Community College. We have increased the operational funding for the community college by $168,838. In addition, we are proposing $250,000 for capital outlay. The Clinton City School District tax rate. The current tax rate for the Clinton City School District is 14.5. We're recommending the revenue neutral rate of 11.5 cents. And even with the revenue neutral rate, there will be an increased funding from this tax of $149,718.50. Contingency. We have budgeted $500,000 for contingency. We continue to be concerned about operating costs in general and the cost of utilities, gas, and oil specifically. Likewise, it is possible that the funding for these items in the various department budgets may need to be adjusted during the year, and we are beginning to see some of that because this same statement was essentially said last year, and we have had some challenges. Detention Center and Sheriff's Department. Operating expenses for the Detention Center and Sheriff's Department are $6,135,703 and $12,632,331 respectively. The total budget for the Sheriff's Department, including the Detention Center, is $18,768,034. This combined proposed expenditure for the departments have increased $3,498,070 over last year. They do have projected revenues of $3,369,682, which is $414,816 less than last year.
Was there any other revenue-producing department that decreased their projected income for next year?
I don't know that, I don't remember anything significant if it.
Significant amount, a few thousand here and there.
Do we know why there's going to be a reduction in revenue expected? That's a significant amount.
I would presume because we're expecting less prisoners, and I don't mean that in any kind of curt thing.
That was where the reduction was, less state prisoners and less federal prisoner revenue line items. They were decreased.
Okay.
Department of Social Services, the county contribution to DSS is increasing by $1,296,812. Much of this cost can be attributed to personnel. We continue to be concerned about the cost of Medicaid expansion and the challenges in child protective services. Thankfully, it is expected that the state will cover all county-related costs for Medicaid expansion for the next several years. I do have a couple of added comments. When you get to the Department of Social Services, there are a lot of people in this county that participate or take advantage or get benefits from this department. In food and nutrition services, we service 10,401 individuals in the county. For Medicaid benefits, there are 15,768. Now, I don't know how many of these are crossover, but the food and nutrition is 17.3%. The Medicaid benefits are 26.2%. I would submit to you that if we could figure out those that blend over, there's probably close to 30% of our population that benefits from programs from social services. They continue, like others, to have challenges with recruiting and moving, and this may require some additional discussion that we may have based on some information that I have as of earlier today or last week. Health Department. The county contribution for the Health Department increased by $296,683, and I'm on page 9. The increased cost is primarily due to employee compensation and the increasing cost of medical supplies. Cooperative Extension. The Cooperative Extension budget has increased $98,868. We're continuing with the Beaver Management Program, which will cost $106,000. We're adding one new vehicle and one new sign. The animal shelter. The budget for the animal shelter has increased by $47,915. Much of this increase can be attributed to acquiring on-site veterinary services 3 days a week beginning in July of 2024. That is a major accomplishment, and I cannot express how delighted we are with that. So we think that will be a big boon for the animal shelter and the services we provide to the communities that are interested in pets. Other things that we have, and if you will recall, we've also doing some significant improvements at the animal shelter. In the last year, we've actually completed a new HVAC center for the area that houses the animals. And we are also in the process of building a new office building. If you know, we've got a modular unit out there that we are in the process of trying to displace. So we're excited about that. EMS, the projected EMS budget has increased by $1,106,159. This budget includes 3 new ambulances and 1 replacement QRV. Career ladders. The implementation of the career ladders for paramedics and telecommunicators will cost $161,021. Please see Exhibit J, page 45, which is a reference again, and that is the total resolution that you passed on the market study. Fire departments. We have calculated the revenue neutral rate for all fire departments and adjusted their tax rates accordingly. Only 2 fire departments required further adjustment to ensure an equivalent income for the proposed year. The Fire Association recommended an increase for 3 fire departments. The Roseboro Fire Department and the Herring Fire Department were recommended for increases of 1.5 cents. The Turkey Fire Department was recommended for a 1 cent increase. All fire departments are projected to receive more revenue than what was presented in their respective budgets to the Fire Commission that was reviewed earlier this year. We have increased the involvement of the Fire Commission in reviewing budgets over the last year, and at this point in time, David has worked on some of the specifics relative to the fire departments that he's going to take a minute and talk about.
All right. What we just handed out is basically the revenue neutral information for each fire district. I'm kind of going to go over the layout of the sheet, and then we'll talk about the specifics. You'll see we've got the name of each district on here. The ones that are highlighted had a tax increase that was either requested or was required to meet their request for this fiscal year. If you go across the columns, the next column at the top, column A, is your 23-24 district tax revenue. That should be, if you requested current year taxes and prior year taxes, it's your total tax revenue that was approved in the 23-24 budget. Column B is the 24-25 tax revenue that was requested by each district. Column C is your estimated 24-25 tax base. This is the tax base we estimated after revaluation. For each district, it differs significantly from the estimates you received in December or January, which is what you had prepared your budget, what you used to prepare your budget. Column D is your tax collection rate. That's the tax collection rate that was computed and published in our audit for 2023. The next column, column E, is 1 cent at that collection rate based on your new tax base. The next column, column F, tax rate to make taxes. That is basically dividing your requested taxes by what 1 penny generates. And that's just the answer. That's just the answer. So if you look at Ultraville, it says 6.9 cents is what it takes to make the taxes they've requested. Column G is the current tax rate, 23.24 for each district. Column H is the revenue neutral tax rate. You notice that is higher than the tax rate that it would take to make your taxes. That is computed using the formulas and information from the general statute. Is basically it includes the average growth in the tax rate over the last 5 years since our last revaluation. So you see those rates being higher, it's because the revenue that would be generated, that would need to be generated, is based on that new revenue neutral rate. The next column, column I, is the recommended tax rate increase. That's what's in the recommended budget. Cahera Fire District requested a 1.5 cent increase. It was recommended. Godwin-Falcon Fire District needed 2 cents to be able to make the taxes that they made in fiscal year 23-24. Godwin-Falcon happened to be the only district where the average growth in the tax base was negative. Herring Fire District requested a 1.5 cent tax increase. It was recommended. Turkey Fire District requested a 1 cent increase, and it was recommended. Column J, you'll see the recommended tax rate for each district. You'll note that unless a tax increase was recommended, that is the rate, that is the revenue neutral rate for each district. Column K, that's the reduction in the rates from the current rate. You've got some 2.5 cents, 1.5, half cents. You got a 0 for Goshen and 0 for Cahera. Column L, estimated revenue. That's the revenue that will be generated from the recommended tax rate. It is column E times column J is column K, is column L. You'll notice that in total, the estimated revenue for the fire districts is $4,280,723. That's compared to what was requested of $3,813,400. The last column, column M, revenue exceeds request. Those are the amounts that will be generated over and above the request for each district. That will essentially be remitted to the district, if not in 24-25, then in 25-26. In total, the revenues exceeded all requests by $467,323. that is what the amount that will be generated from taxes. I think that's all.
So just for a clear understanding for a lot of people that don't follow this so well, the budget's requested was $3,813,400. Every bit of that has been honored, plus the $467,323 in addition.
Yes,
So every fire department's gonna get what they asked for in their budget.
yes. And it's also more than what the 23-24 taxes were too.
Let me offer you clarification on budgeting. There seems to be a lot of confusion about fire tax and I thought I'd cut this off. My apologies. I'm one of the people we're going to emphasize technology with moving forward, Ms. Lee. Anyway, there seems to be, when we start out doing the budget for the county, long before we ever have revenues, we're coming up with how much money is needed, okay, and how much we want, and how much we need for the budget. And then we determine, based on the revenue projections, what is available. And most of my department heads will tell you at some points in time, we come back and start talking about reductions because we have to bring a two in the balance. We do not start with the tax rate. For example, think about what we could have done this year if we had taken the additional 20 cents times $682,000 and just, man, we can have a field day spending this money, okay? We got the distinct impression in 2022, Mr. McClam, that people just weren't interested in paying more taxes if they could help it. So that is the approach that we have taken. Communications, the communications budget is $1,941,371. The recommended aging budget is $496.03. The exposition center, believe it or not, basically is neutral for this year. They are requiring the same money this year that they did last year. Human resources, the human resources budget has increased by $210,680. $47,000 of this is related to salaries. $14,000 is contracted services, and $147,000 is related to data processing and things that we need to be able to provide the customer service and the efficiency that we would like to have. On page 10, as identified in the pay study implemented in 2015, the final step to maintain progress realized through the adoption of the pay plan is to develop and maintain a sustainable process to move all employees from the minimum to the midpoint of their assigned grade within 10 years. Understanding the process and recognizing the opportunity will address ongoing compression issues created when the salaries of new hires nearly match the salaries of seasoned employees. With the traditional practice of addressing cost of living issues with percentage pay raises across the board, nothing has effectively addressed the need to move employees through their pay grade. Effective July 21st, 2024, employee salaries will be evaluated, if approved by the board, will be evaluated to determine the difference between the employee salary and midpoint of the assigned pay grade, as well as the time in the pay grade. The amount of difference will be divided by the number of years remaining to reach 10 years in the pay grade. Each employee will receive the amount as an annual contingent upon a satisfactory performance evaluation. The result will allow employees to realize incremental pay raises and greater reward for long-term employees. The second recommendation, the needs in human resources. The needs of employees in a multi-generational workforce are constantly evolving along with the increased stressors of storms, pandemics, inflation, healthcare challenges, caring for patients and their children, and a culture driven by an increasingly complex and ever-evolving information landscape. These added pressures on top of family and work responsibilities have led to the realization that employee wellness is an essential component of efficient and effective operations. Available data clearly supports a more flexible work schedule and greater work-life balance. To provide greater options for employees to reach a sustainable balance, the implementation of 2 8-hour paid wellness leave days to be scheduled and used with encouragement and permission of supervisors will allow our employees an additional opportunity to spend time on activities that add meaning to their lives. The days will be treated just as flex holiday approved by the BOC in the last budget. They will become available on January 1st, 2025. If approved, it must be used before January 1st, 2026. Revaluation. The Board of Commissioners is voted to complete revaluations every 4 years, as recommended by the Department of Revenue. We're recommending that $800,000 be set aside for the next review. Special appropriations is basically the same as what we have done in recent years, or certainly the last two. Debt service vehicles, number 28 on page 11. In the recommended budget, we're proposing to replace 15 patrol vehicles with SUVs, 1 animal control vehicle, 2 vehicles for social services, 1 new truck for extension, 1 new truck for emergency management, replace 3 ambulances, 1 QR vehicle, and 1 truck for public works. Retirement system contributions. The county's contribution for our share of regular employees' retirement system will increase to 13.64 for non-law enforcement and 15.04 for law enforcement. We estimate this additional cost to be $300,000. In the next note, I want my department heads to pay particular attention. The $300,000 plus the additional $803,200 for health insurance totals an additional $1,103,200 that the county is paying for benefits on behalf of our employees. Thus, the county is increasing the contribution to employee benefits by more than $1,902 per full-time employee. And I think as employees, sometimes we forget some of those intangible benefits that are paid for us or done for us that we sort of take for granted, but maybe don't appreciate as fully as we should. Elections. The elections budget has increased by $60,338. We are budgeting $800,000 for capital reserve. Personnel. We reported in last year's budget message that the number of full-time permanent positions would be 579 after all recommendations were implemented. That figure was incorrect. Nancy Dillman says it's my fault. I say it's Nancy Dillman's fault. So we are constantly arguing over the one position. But anyway, we have settled on there's 580. The number 580 as we overlook 1 vacant position. There are no additional full-time positions recommended with this budget. Therefore, the number of full-time positions remains at 580. Solid waste. There will be no charges for solid waste collections during the 2024-2025 fiscal year. This amounts to projected savings of $1,055,000. GIS and administration. The administration budget reflects an increase of $248,429. GIS now consists of 3 team members and are part of the administration department. 2 of these positions are reassigned positions and are not new positions. In addition, there is a significant cost for some planned scanning that will free up additional space in the tax office for GIS-related work. The budget also reflects the cost of maintaining the new website. We're now moving a position from the finance department to maintain our new website, and we may even work with that position to accommodate our new attorney to some degree. Information technology. The IT budget has increased by $41,623. As one can see from the previous website discussion, we're increasing our emphasis on customer-friendly technology. In that regard, we are currently conducting an IT audit to assess our program and obtain recommendations for future operations. Let me add one additional comment, because somebody will figure it out and they will do it. Somebody's going to come up, Ms. Letha Lee, and say, well, Mr. Manager, you've been talking about some of this stuff for 2 or 3 years. And I would have to say that is correct. We have been sidetracked either by my own poor leadership or whatever it is, either COVID or budget issues or whatever, we have refrained from pushing to do some things that probably, as I look back in hindsight, should have made been a little bit more proactive in trying to ask. So yes, I will take the critiques that come. If you want to say, Mr. Cause, you talk about this every year. Yes, I have done it for the last 3 years. Courts, the budget for the courts has increased $50,600. Much of this increase can be attributed to the lease of space for the public defender's office that was approved at the April board meeting.
Mr. Crosby, you want to take a short recess here?
I certainly do.
Okay, we will recess for about 10 minutes. we'll get back to the task at hand. Mr. Collins, one thing I was going to say about the things that got put to the side and who's responsible, I think what the ones that are responsible is the flow of money was not here. We started out $2.5 million in the hole, and you have to cut some things that you want. And, of course, it appears from what I'm looking at, we should have cut a lot more but we didn't, trying to keep up with, the economy and what our fellow, counties, adjacent counties were doing. So, I think that's where we are with that. But anyway, please continue.
I'd just like to add to the conversation, and you're going to see that theme in probably summarize. I think our Board of Commissioners in the last 2 or 3 years has had a tougher job than what I have seen in the last several years. What sometimes our public does not understand, and Ms. Letha Lee has talked about this a lot, is you have to make decisions for the benefit of everybody. I don't know of anybody that really comes in that doesn't have a good request or something that they're very sincere, passionate about. But what one person considers to be a waste, another person considers that to be what they want to advocate for the most, and that's just what it is. And the board has to make those decisions, and then it transcends. I think if I were to critique administration and myself in particular, I should have been emphasizing technology more, because there's just a lot of stuff that appears on social media that is incorrect. And I tend to dismiss it, but then you start seeing people that are repeating that stuff where they have accepted some of this stuff as the gospel, and that sort of tells me that from the administrative staff, we got to do a better job of getting information, because there are a lot of people that would prefer complete information and to be able to put things in context. And I'm going to talk about a number of things that might be uncomfortable for some, but I'm trying to give accurate information as best I know how.
Yeah, I'm afraid social media is not designed to give accurate information.
I think I have learned that. I've read some things about me that if I didn't know it was me, I wouldn't dislike the person too. But I would like to tell everybody that my late mother adored me, irregardless of what anybody else says. We'll get back on task.
Okay.
Context and clarification. The preceding sections are provided each year to fulfill our obligations under the North Carolina Local Budget and Fiscal Control Act to provide information that explains the goals fixed by the budget, the important features of the recommended budget, and any changes in fiscal policies, programs, or appropriation levels. Offering this detailed information allows the board and the public to fully understand why the funding decisions are recommended and approved. You know, I think David and Jean, we will have the full budget online sometime tonight or even before the end of this meeting. As noted in the introduction to this budget message, fiscal year 2023-24 has been comparatively stable in regard to economic matters. Conversely, it has unfortunately been a period of heightened controversy regarding many operational and financial matters of the county. Therefore, this budget message includes this additional section wherein we offer comments, context, or clarifications regarding many of the budget or budget-adjacent matters which have been discussed during the year. It is our hope that when fiscal policies and board actions are evaluated in the context of such thorough, accurate information versus partial or misinformation, often found in social media, it engenders understanding even when there may be no agreement, okay? The one thing I would like to emphasize, okay, the repeated statement of an untruth does not make it true at any point in time. An untruth is an untruth, okay? Number one, budgeting authorities and processes are set by statute. In counties with a county manager is the budget officer, and as so is tasked in each year with the development of a proposed budget. The manager, in consultation with budget and finance staff, reviews the departmental proposals and compiles an overall county budget that is submitted to the Board of Commissioners in early May. Once that proposed budget is presented, it then becomes the commissioner's budget to adjust or confirm as they need it after input from the public at large during a mandated public hearing. You might say that the budget was my budget till about 8 o'clock tonight when I finish this. At that point in time, it becomes the commissioner's budget. And the role of David and myself at that point is to support you in how you drive at the final budget that you want to prepare. In September 2022, we provided the BOC with an extensive report, a clarifying perspective on budgetary matters that is on our webpage for those that might be interested in additional information. And at the time, I think the comment was made by some that we were grandstanding because we were providing a lot of information in a 3-hour period of time. And I guess depending on how you look at it, I can't say the statement's incorrect, but we felt like we needed to put out information. The next section has garnered a lot of discussion by a variety of people in recent months. Revenue sources are limited, and the goal is to ensure that the burden of funding government services is as equitable as possible. Other than grants from the state and federal government, county governments have basically 3 avenues for gaining additional revenues. A county's primary source of revenue is from property taxes that are assessed on real estate, business-related assets, vehicles, and equipment. Secondly, there is a sales tax that is applied to the purchase of most consumable goods. Third and finally, there are fees that can be assessed for the privilege of utilizing a variety of county-provided services. Most counties use some combination of the above for gaining needed revenue. And let me emphasize, there is no right or wrong combination. It is a choice based on the direction established by a particular Board of Commissioners. In Sampson County, real estate is divided into 50,500 parcels. As some property owners own multiple parcels, these 50,500 parcels are owned by approximately 30,800 people. As we have a county population of near 60,000 people, it is easy to conclude that less than the entire population is participating in the payment of property taxes to support county government. Sales tax is applied to goods purchased and some services. So generally, sales tax is thought to be a method that allows the entire population to participate in the cost of county government, as all citizens receive some services that are provided or paid for by the county. No county can levy a sales tax that has not been authorized by the state government. Once authorized, the counties then authorize a referendum to vote on same unless the legislature authorizes the levy of the additional sales tax by vote of the county commissioners. There has not been a vote on sales tax, as same has not been authorized by the state legislature. There has been advocacy to obtain the authorization to allow the discussion on additional sales tax. This authorization would then allow for substantive conversation, and this conversation has gone everywhere. There are a lot of people, or a lot of what's been reported to me have viewed that this board has voted for sales tax. This board has not yet voted for sales tax. Like anything else, you say research and then we decide. Many citizens are willing to pay additional fees for services they utilize. Examples include the charges for county water, recreation fees, building permits, septic permits, the expo center, etc. It is certainly the prerogative of each board to decide which revenue sources or combination thereof they wish to utilize to gain needed revenues for county operations. However, any board will have inherent challenges in meeting their county financial obligations if some combination or utilization of the above is not incorporated into their planning.
Mr. Causey, let me interject this. One of the concerns that I saw is that we've got, and I had Mr. Johnson pull this up, we've got about 400, a little over 400 people paying about 30% of the property tax. And you've got a county that's only got just under 60,000 people. And the other thing that's a concern is that we still have $100 million in debt thereabouts. It's dwindled down some now, I know, but the vast majority of it was at $77 million was for school debt. And of course, trying to that's about 10 cents on the tax rate. And there's a better way of getting it paid off, and that's one of the things that I was hoping to do, and it's one of the things we looked at with sales tax. But it would have given us an opportunity of another tool. But that's gone. It's not happened. So it looks like you're going to be stuck with property tax. We'll see. Thank you.
County tax support. The Water Department and the Transportation Department are the only two departments that generate all the necessary revenues without any county tax support. Both departments are well managed. Let me repeat this statement again for those that may have heard otherwise. The Water Department and the Transportation Department are the only two departments that generate all necessary revenues without any county tax supports. Both taxes are well managed. I also want to point out that I find it refreshing that neither department ever asks for special consideration because they are able to function without current tax support. I think that is a credit to the quality of leadership we've got in those two departments, okay? Number 4, revaluation. By state law, counties are only required to do property revaluations every 8 years. However, the Department of Revenue strongly recommends that revaluations occur more frequently and generally recommend every 4 years. At present, 50 of the 100 counties in North Carolina are on a 4-year cycle. Of the remaining 50 counties, only 30 remain in the 8-year cycle. It was even reported that Sampson County was the only county operating on a 4-year cycle. Here again, when that kind of stuff gets told on a regular basis, some people get to believing it. Fees for service, solid waste collection. I bet there's a bunch of people in here that thought I'd never bring this one up. Here we go. As noted above, user fees are considered an opportunity to generate revenues outside the property tax levy to ensure the cost of government service are more equitably shouldered by all citizens. The proposed fees for the utilization of the convenience sites that were rescinded by the Board of Commissioners in December 2023 have received much attention. We agree that public information provided at the time bills went out was insufficient. In hindsight, the effort caused much confusion, okay? I would like to add my way of trying to make a little bit lighter is I participated in this problem, okay? However, it may be helpful to offer additional information regarding the effort that should provide a clearer understanding of what was intended. There are a few people that would like to know exactly what happened and why, because I have gotten those questions, that they think social media sort of took it up and drove it. And the criticism is legit, and there's nothing that I'm saying anywhere that suggests that the criticism is invalid. But the criticism is only part of the story. The proposed fee received extensive discussion in May 2023 during budget discussions. The newspaper covered the issue in depth. We are attaching the original 2-page Exhibit A that was included with the May 22nd, 2023 budget message. The Exhibit A is the exact same thing that was sent last year. It was reported in the newspaper. There was an extensive article and so forth. So the information was out there. The approved convenience fee was rescinded in December 2023 primarily because GFL proposed to waive the fees for the operation of our 12 convenience sites for 30 months. This means that GFL charges for collection and transportation of solid waste and recyclables will not be payable again until July 2026. This gives the Board of Commissioners ample time to revisit the issue of convenience fees if necessary. Number C. The fee was charged as a separate bill to ensure that those residents who had an alternative service could have the convenience fee bill exempted, since these arrangements could not be determined in advance of the billing. Mr. Chairman, I would tell you that if we operated as a bureaucracy, we would have added the stuff right on the original bill and kept cruising. But the administrative staff would, with the recommendation of the tax supervisor, said in the bill, in the law, the law, and it's attached, implies that if people have an alternative service, then they probably should not be charged. Now, we interpreted that to give the benefit to our customer base. Therefore, we sent out separate bills because we wanted to give everybody an opportunity that had a private collection service to tell us, because we had no way to catch that information anyway, and then we were going to adjust it. At the end of the day, the mistake that we made, we should have done more public information at the time the bills went out. The service as proposed is a fee like multiple other fees charged by the county for specific services. The term trash tax is incorrect for those that prefer accurate references information. I realize it gets information and it is cute, but there are those people that want to maintain the relevance of things. But let's take this as.
If I may interject, I had taxpayers that had pickup service and said, why am I paying taxes on these people that are using the service and I don't? So that's one of the reasons we considered it. And that's exactly what was happening. Tax money was paying the bill to GFL. And so you had people that basically were double paying. They were paying for their own service plus their neighbor. So that was the reason that I was in favor of it, still am. I think it's only fair. I can go to my neighbor and ask him if he wants to pay for my well, but I don't think he will. And you get the same difference.
Another interesting side note here. This, and people have a right to their view, and I'm not saying any of the views are wrong, but at the same time, we got hit with not putting enough information out. After the debacle occurred and we decided to rescind it, then I was directed to prepare a letter to send out to, what was it, David, the 17,000 citizens. Then we had a citizen, and he was right. He came to the board meeting and complained about our excessive use of spending that money to send out those letters. So then the question becomes, which is it? Do we want transparency or do we want to spend the money it takes to give people information? I'm not saying either is right. It is very valid. But this gives an example, Ms. Leith, of the diverse kinds of issues that this board has to deal with.
May I make an interjection here? As Chairman Kivett says all the time, a tax is something you have to pay. A fee is something you choose to pay. You were allowed to choose if you wanted this service. Plus, that would help us move more to a fee-based collection of revenue and spread the responsibility around people that are using it, people that are coming outside the county. Like Chairman Kivett, I still think it was a good idea. We were getting revenue from the people that were actually using it. And, it was highly maligned.
And on the other hand, we were already in discussions with GFL for more revenue from them. And so this money actually went to this fee. And so we would have been $1 million ahead had we continued with it. And which, I think, as we see in this budget, we're going to need that $1 million. Yes, ma'am.
In one way, it was a protection for our citizens here in Sampson County, because we have people coming from Bladen, Duplin, Pender, putting trash in our trash barrels, and we're having to pay for it, the residents of Sampson County, and that's not fair. With that fee, if they come to put the trash in the trash barrel, they would have had a sticker, or either they'd have to come to the county and pay the $80 like we paying. And that's only fair. It's protection for us in one sense, for now we don't know who's putting it in there. We paying for some other county, because they had the fee for years. But when the fee came up in Sampson County, everybody rejected it. So it's just pay it or let somebody else dump their trash and you pay it.
Okay. Number 6, recruiting challenges. The challenges with maintaining full employment for public safety and social services personnel are and have been a local, state, and national challenge. To imply that this has been just a local challenge with only local responsibility is disingenuous. The available evidence to prove this point is indisputable, okay? This is not a Sampson, it was not a Sampson County, it is not a Sampson County issue. It is not just a North Carolina issue. Basically, I see a news clip on some related matter basically every day when I check the news. Number 7, employee salaries, emphasis on public safety. Sampson County has a rich history of supporting public safety employees as well as all employees of the county. We have included a number of exhibits which recap the board's endeavors. A, Exhibit C reflects that Sampson County employees have received salary increases of 35.92% since July 2021. Exhibit C is on page 34.
May I add something here, please?
Yes, ma'am?
That's in 3 years, so we're looking at about 12% increase average over the year, each year.
That can't be. Not what I heard on social media.
But
I said no. I shook my head.
I looked up from the Department of Labor, Bureau of Labor and Statistics today. May I share with you that in the year ending 4/30/23, the average salary increase for all state and local government employees was 4.7%. So we were way above that. The year ending 4/30/24, the salary increase was 5.5% increase for all state and local government employees. So saying all that, let us make it a point to everybody to understand that this board has worked really hard to show our employees how we value them and try to compensate them as best we can. And I think we have done a really good job of looking after our employees. And I feel good about what we've done for them.
And we all voted to give these raises. Yet we were accused of not giving any. It's either or. From 21, the summer of 21 until 23, summer of 23, I'm stealing your thunder here. The next detention center got 36.93%. Sheriff office got 35.18. Social services got 25.75. And then everyone else got 24.47. Now, that was not at one time. That was incrementally along. Yet it was published and said from every media that I could hear that we didn't do it. Yet everyone on this board voted for it.
Well, the challenge that we all have, and administration, it's the same thing, everything. I would say we support all of our departments. At the same time, I'd like to see any department raise their hand that's gotten everything they've ever asked for whenever they've asked for it. If you have, then I want to talk to you afterwards because I've missed something.
Look, I'm proud of what we did. I was glad to do that. I thought it was the right thing to do. That's what I tried to do as this job, was what is the right thing. But anyway, you go ahead.
Well, we have the other issue, and to carry that, we have the same thing in informing all of our employees. In the last week, Mr. Chairman, we had a young employee that is in the first year. I believe this young lady was hired in July of 2023. And she registered concerns that she thought that the county and the leadership should give her some consideration. At least a little raise would have helped her. She did not remember in April of this year that she had gotten a 4% raise retroactive to last November. So this is the kind of thing we've got to do a better job of informing all of our employees of what is going on.
I think honesty is also needed.
Yes, sir. Item C, page 37 outlines the additional incentives that Sampson County employees have received since July 1, 2017. Law enforcement has been one of the beneficiaries of these incentives. Number D, page 38 includes excerpts from previous budget message going back to 2020-21 reflecting funding for law enforcement. The 2022-23 information points out that the total expenditures for law enforcement had increased 63% over the previous 10 years. Exhibit G in item E reflects net tax supports for all departments in the recommended fiscal year 23-24 budget. As you can see, law enforcement was projected to receive $11,442,324 of net tax support. That's after any revenues that they have generated have been received. They received $4,804,886 more than DSS, which came in second at $6,637,438. Now, Ms. Fields, I do not want to create a contest to see who can spend the most. Clearly, the county has demonstrated a positive track record for supporting law enforcement. Exhibit H reflects the actual net tax support for law enforcement between 2018 and 2023, total $59,762,994. If we go back to 2001, we find that the total expenditures for law enforcement have increased 410%. We value law enforcement, emergency services, and all other Sampson County departments. The issues regarding staffing are real, affect multiple departments, and reflect what is going on throughout North Carolina and the United States. We recognize frustration and the value of venting our concerns at times. We will continue to work to provide needed services to all of Sampson County. However, much of the social media discussion regarding law enforcement is hyperbole, as one will conclude after considering all the facts placed in this in context. Or, and I'm being very polite with that, down in eastern North Carolina where I come from, our saying would be, that dog just doesn't hunt, okay? I would also say, when you look at this, for anybody, and we're not talking about public service and law enforcement or emergency services, we're talking about everybody. For anybody to say that this board has not supported the human infrastructure across the board in this county, they do not have facts to support it. I will be the first one to admit that there are times people have made specific requests that we could not act on at the given time. But somebody can't tell me, can't say because I've turned down a particular budget amendment that we don't support them. You've got to look at everything in the totality of what is going on. We do recognize that our public service employees are an integral part of Sampson County government, and they are sincerely appreciated. Make no mistake on that.
Mr. Carter, let me interject something right here with this budget. You know, I am an advocate for Sampson County employees because I worked for Sampson County over 32 years. And right now, I'm not ashamed to tell it, I can't draw enough money on my retirement to support myself. And that was because I didn't make nothing when I was working. So anytime that there's a raise or we got any money that we can give to the employees, I'm gonna vote for it, as long as I sit in this seat. Now, when somebody else get in it, I can't support what they do, but as long as I'm here, because I know how bad it's needed. Because what happened back then, I can't help it. I didn't have nothing to do with, because I had to work, and so I would have worked. But now, we are giving our employees so much more than what we got when I was working. So I'm appreciative of it. I'm appreciative of everything that this board have done to give the raises, because they helped support it just like I did. And it's needed, because I know it's needed, and I'm gonna vote for it.
Okay. Item number 8. We are hearing more and more comments about the restoration of post-employment health benefits. And that is, of course, a decision that the board will need to make at some point in time if it comes up that you want to have further discussion. However, let me offer you some context for what was done and what really is. Post-employment benefits were changed with the July 1st, 2015 budget that implemented the pay plan adopted that fiscal year. As part of that implementation plan, employees with less than 5 years of service as of July 1st, 2015 would no longer be eligible for post-employment health benefits. Employees with less than 15 years of service as of July 1st, 2015, would be required to work for Sampson County for 20 consecutive years as a permanent employee and be at least 58 years old to be eligible for post-employment health benefits. Employees with 15 years or more of service as of July 1st would continue to be eligible under the current plan. B, concurrent with the post-employment benefits change in 2015, changes were also made, and that is a reduced benefits. I'm not denying that. Concurrent with the post-employment benefit changes in 2015, changes were also made to the 401k contributions, encouraging employees to take a more significant role in preparing for retirement. I participated in this process, and the reason for doing it was to give employees some incentive and help them to recover potentially some of what they had lost in age. Prior to 2015 implementation, non-law enforcement employees received a 2.53% of income match to their 401 accounts. Law enforcement had 5%. In the 2015 revision, the 2.53% automatic contribution was reduced to 1.5. However, the county agreed to match employee deposits up to an additional 3.5% if the employee contributed additionally to their accounts. So we created the pathway in the incentive to encourage people to contribute to be able to offset the lost benefit up here of the health insurance. Number C, Sampson County refinanced approximately $50 million of bonds in late 2015 that created a projected savings of $6 million for the remainder of the debt. As part of the transaction, the county was able to achieve an improved bond rating without purchasing insurance for the same. A cost of the previous insurance was $473,000. One of the reasons cited for the favorable bond review was the county's 2015 implementation plan for the pay classification and benefits review. The changes implemented in that plan provided for the long-term needs of enhancing the county's financial stability as well as the long-term needs of employees. Number D, the schedule of changes in the net OPEB liability, which is in the audit, and related ratios for related health care benefits planned in the 2023 audit reflects a total liability of $12,053,000. The amount of this liability in 2014 prior to the changes in the health benefits was $18,838,000. Our current liability would be higher than the $18 million figure had the 2015 changes not been implemented. Tell you one more thing that I forgot to include and probably should have. Several years later, and I think it was 2017, David, we actually went to Raleigh with the blessing of the board and talked to the local government commission about refinancing some of the USDA debt. As a policy, they did not allow counties to refinance USDA debt, but we decided that we wanted to do it. And I think we were looking for 23 years or some such at the time. Well, the particular day that we went up there, David was there, Chairman Wooten was with us at the time, I was there, and our finance advisor, Doug Carter, was there. So we sat in on the local government commission board meeting, and we sat there for about 2 hours and literally watched them reject every request that came up until we got there. In fact, we would whisper and say, well, we might as well just go home. They're not going to help us. But they approved our funding, and the state treasurer at the time was Dale Falwell, who actually spoke. And he said, folks, these people are showing you how they can save $250,000 a year, additionally a year in payments. And I can't in good conscience not tell them that I'm not going to help them when you look at the fiscal responsibility that they have put in place to date. And so that's how we come it. We're not telling anybody that you shouldn't restore the health benefits. I'm telling you is put it into context and look at the benefits and what it does to the physical integrity of the county and determine if you can afford it.
I was on the board in 2015 when we made those changes. Personally, I don't think it's sustainable for the county to be able to continue to pay those as more and more people retire. It was just out of our range, and I continue to feel the same way. And the state, I think, has abolished that rule as well.
Number 9, the county manager's compensation. Much has been postulated regarding the county manager's salary. An honest discussion regarding such matters should always be welcome, and I'm not saying it shouldn't be. I'm the lead figure for county administration, and certainly the things that I do should be questioned. However, the public discussion sometimes overlooks proper context. The same firm that did the market study for the employee compensation also did a review survey of the county manager's salary and provided same to the Board of Commissioners. The board used this information in their evaluation. Now, those of you that participated in the motion have been beat up in social media, and I can't tell whether they're trying to get you or me. But anyway, it's kind of the way it is. The last survey of salaries compiled by the UNC School of Government reflects the 2022 salaries. In that survey, the Sampson County manager ranked 37th out of 81 counties reported, okay? It was reported on social media that I was the top salary person amongst county managers in North Carolina. I don't know how people come up with this stuff. If you take the 2024 current salary and compare it to the 2022 data, the Sampson County manager ranked 27th out of 81. The Sampson County manager has 30 years of government experience and 14 years of experience as a county manager. And those are not currently running together. I had the 30 years before I came. But now I'm pleased to give you something on the positive side. Okay? I have been worried about the governor, and apparently somebody heard that I was making more money than he was in 2023. I want you to know that in 2023, he got a raise and was earning $198,120 or $220. In 2024, his salary is up to $203,073. And I am just pleased as I can be that the governor has received a raise.
And may I add also, he has 5-star accommodations to live in that we don't provide you, and his amenities are much greater than yours as well.
Public water system development. Here again, this is item number 10. And here's something that the county, I think, has done a remarkable job, and I'm not going to read the whole thing. However, basically, your water system came back out in the early 1990s, I think, was when it was done primarily. And basically, you set up 2 water districts. One basically covered the 421 corridor, and one covered the Highway 24 corridor. And you did that with USDA loans and grants. None of those systems were put in to provide fire protection, and that creates confusion. But in any circumstance, the whole concept of what was done at the time was to create the beginnings of a system that has allowed the revenues and the financial capability of the system to improve. You can add more and more customers, and that is essentially what has happened. The water system is operated as an enterprise. That means we do not, as a general rule, put county monies into the system. So therefore, we try to be very careful on how it operates. You've got 2 parts of that. You've got the operating cost, and then you've got the capital expenditures. So if we are paying them, I'm over on page 19 at the top. And I'm going to start at the 3rd paragraph. Operating a self-sufficient water system necessitates that we determine economic feasibility when evaluating potential new lines. We must consider both the cost of installing the new system as well as the cost of continuing operations. The grants received in recent years have been a tremendous help in offsetting some of the costs. Let's take the area of Ivanhoe as an example. The approved grant for the project was $13,283,000. We project there are 550 potential users in this area. And of the 550, we project that 300 potential users would opt to purchase water. And that's a pretty standard percentage for rural water systems. This equates to a cost of more than $44,000 per customer. By comparison, in most areas of the county, one could probably dig a deep well for $10,000, plus or minus. Without the recent funding the county would typically do, you would do well to obtain a 50% grant for funding for the expansion project. With 50% grant funding, a 20-year repayment period at 2% interest, this project would then cost $111 per month per customer. This is why counties could not undertake, and that doesn't consider the operating cost. And if you have a system that is spread out and you push in more water and not use it, then you've got the problem with having to blow off lines to keep fresh water. We are grateful that the state and federal government have allowed the development of this and other projects. At the same time, we wonder how the federal government will retire a $34 trillion debt that has doubled in the last 10 years. In 2016, I believe the federal debt when Trump went in office was $16 to $17 million. We have doubled that debt in the 10 years. Now, my question would be, has the government doubled the potential revenue to repay that debt in that time? And I don't think it has. Likewise, in Sampson County, we have got to be very mindful of such things. I tend to prefer not to have any debt, but if you're going to have debt, then I'm looking at what your debt is compared to what you've got to repay it. And as long as your money to repay debt is increasing at a faster rate than the money needed to pay your debt, you can probably survive. But I do not know anybody that could pay $111 a month for a capital debt for water. However, I am just as tickled as I can be that we're going to be able to get water for the people in Ivanhoe. Item number 11, landfill and convenience site operations. We have attached for you on page 48 and this is something I wish everybody in the county would read. It's Exhibit K, a brief overview of the solid waste operations in Sampson County. And relative to that, I'm going to read 2 paragraphs in this, and then I'm going to talk about it and not spend it. But this is important. I will be the first one, Miss Letha, to tell you that if anybody lives near a landfill and they have any problem with odors or concerns, my heart goes out to them, okay? There's no question about it. My heart, your heart, and everybody's heart is very considered. But at the same time, I think it is helpful if we will go back and look at the history of what was going on. And when you read the history of the landfill, we had a problem in Sampson County before the landfill as being expanded and developed. Sampson County, when they operated it, we were in trouble. With state regulations coming into play, the county was in deep trouble, and there was excessive cost at the time, they thought, to do the things that they needed to do to improve it. My point is, I'm not saying what is good or bad, but I'm saying it is very reasonable that the commissioners decided to bring in professional people to operate the landfill. The 241 acres that is presently being operated is operated by GFL and not the county. And over time, the regulatory person for landfills or group is the state. I don't know of any regulatory controls or restraint that the county can exercise for it. That doesn't mean that we do not need to advocate for good environmental protection and good environmental considerations as we move forward. But at the same time, we need to think about some of that. I would go over to item 20, page 20, and look at B. B, GFL owns all the property currently utilized as the regional landfill. The state is the regulatory authority regarding the landfill. We project that the host fees revenues for the upcoming year will be $3,400,000. I'm at the bottom of page 20. If the landfill was not in operation, the county would no longer receive the host fees and would incur the additional cost of disposing of our future waste. However, number F, as important as the economic advantages of the current landfill contract are to Sampson County, they do not negate our responsibility for environmental stewardship. When the landfill was first sited, the primary concern was ensuring the county met its needs for solid waste management in a manner compliant with all state and federal requirements, and that remains a priority today. So what I am telling you is, yes, we should be sensitive to anybody that has concerns that lives near the landfill if it is a problem. At the same time, we need to remember that this board went out and what was it? What did we get, an additional $5 million to put in additional water lines around the landfill? I forget that amount. So for somebody to say that the board is not compassionate and interested in helping all of our citizens is just not a true statement. I would be the first one to admit that I question if the board will ever be able to do everything relative to the landfill that everybody wants to do. But they are operating under state regulations and within the requirements of the permit. And the only thing we need to be is very on guard and watching. To date, I would have to say GFL has generally responded very positively when we try to talk with them. But for example, there's a problem with turkey buzzards. The lady that came in and told us that is a real problem. But that is a federally endangered species. In the landfill, Norda County has the ability to come in and do much about that. And that's just the way it is. What we're trying to do is we're not trying to disavow the importance of anybody's concerns. What we're trying to get across is we need to get the public to look at these concerns in the context of what you really are able to do and what you really have to deal with.
May I add that I ran up with the lady that came and spoke to us so respectfully about the buzzards, and she was so complimentary of your interaction and interaction from GFL, and the problem has been abated at her house.
But it will probably come back.
It probably will, but she was appreciative and always respectful.
I've had them at my house.
The next section, number 12, is litter concerns, okay? If you recall, over the last year, we have had a variety of people, and legitimately so, Mrs. Lee, that has come in and complained to the board about litter on the roads, okay? Some of the people, and let's talk about the 800-pound gorilla, attribute the litter to GFL and the trucks coming in, and I don't know that that's not some of the case. But what does the board do? The board comes up and asks us to contact the Department of Transportation and get them to come in and talk to us about litter, and I believe that occurred in January, Miss Sue, if I'm not mistaken. In what they said when they came in, first they indicated that increasing roadside litter was a state and national problem and just not a Sampson County problem. They could not identify the primary source of the problem. And I think the board sort of asked them, but at the end of the day, they acknowledged it was a problem, but they couldn't attribute any more responsibility to any one party than they could another. Second, they reported that they have increased their funding allocation to assist with the problem. However, they were quick to point out that this funding was admittedly insufficient to solve the problem. So what did the board do? One of you sat right over and says, well, what is the solution to this problem? And if you remember what the gentleman told us, whose specialty was litter, said, well, I will tell you, he says, let's go back to the 60s when seatbelts came out. He says, when seatbelts came out and they passed a law regarding seatbelts, nobody really took any action with it. And all of a sudden, it became an emphasis of law enforcement where they started click it or ticket. And all of a sudden, now, I very seldom get in the car with anybody that everybody's first impulse is to put that seatbelt on. I think the vast majority of people to use it. So he went on to say, until we've got the resources available to help law enforcement engage to make litter an issue, it was probably going to keep continuing to be a problem. Now, I'll be the first one to also tell you, if you decide we've got all kinds of extra money, I guess we could start hiring people to pick up trash on the highways, but I think, I'm not sure that would be feasible at this time to be able to mandate it or accomplish it in such a manner that everybody would get benefits. Number 13, the acres versus the county of Sampson. That lawsuit was filed in February 9th of 2020. The attached Exhibit I, page 43, includes both a background summary and a summary of the terms of the settlement. And I would encourage everyone to read that. The litigant's attorney, number A, we have been castigated because we did not settle that thing early. The litigant's attorney never contacted the county prior to filing the lawsuit to see if it could be resolved without filing the lawsuit. Okay? B, there was significant public discussion regarding the lawsuit and why the same was not immediately settled after the lawsuit was filed. No specific damages were offered before November of 2023, when two plaintiffs offered a statement and calculations of alleged damages. On a rolling basis, the remaining plaintiffs offered responses and supplemental discovery through January 9th, 2024. Sampson County never received a full settlement demand until January 30th, 2024, at the mediation hearing. Between October 17th, 2023 and February 5th, 2024, 16 of the 34 plaintiffs voluntarily dismissed their claims. In July 2020, the county, to support law enforcement, temporarily changed the rules for the payment of gap time as allowed by FLSA for overtime and compensatory time off. In the settlement, the county agreed to continue with the temporary policy related to the gap time until modified by the county commissioners. There now seems to be an understanding that the actions taken in July 2020 were an effort to support law enforcement and not admission of any previous wrongdoing. We're not questioning anybody's right to file a lawsuit or to pursue what they think is right. However, to sit here and tell me that this board is not responsible is not true either. I don't know what else you could have done if you're going to protect the interest of all the people in the county. E, the $55,000 in overtime is significantly less than the total overtime expended for the year. Number F, the county did agree to settle the lawsuit for $16,500 with no admission of wrongdoing. The $16,500 will cost the county much less than the next phase of the case, which would have necessitated a trial. This is the first time that the county has had an opportunity to settle when potential remaining costs could be reasonably projected. At the end of the day, the attorney, and I was sitting in the room, our attorney says, I don't think you will get out of a trial for less than $50,000 or $60,000 before it's all said and done. So if you can end it today for $16,500, it might be in your best interest.
So we settled with less than 30 days after we found out what they were asking for.
Yes, sir.
Wow, I didn't hear that anywhere in social media. Imagine that.
Questions or comments? I'm getting close. If you'll let me have one more drink of water. Number 14 is fire departments. We've had more discussions with fire departments in the last 3 or 4 weeks than I think I've had in the previous 3 or 4 years. There is no denying the value of our volunteer fire department organizations in Sampson County. Community fire departments are one of the integral parts of our social capital, those networks of relationships amongst people who live and work in a particular community, enabling that community to function effectively. In addition to dealing with fires and assisting with emergency responses, fire departments aid their communities as hosts for fundraising events, holiday parades, offering their stations as public meeting places, and sometimes providing polling places. This type of social capital is decidedly important here in rural areas where resources are limited and neighbors can be geographically isolated. However, their importance to their communities, notwithstanding rural fire departments, much the same as local government and the private sector, are experiencing challenges that will necessitate that they continue to evolve. Here in Sampson County, most of our fire departments are still staffed with volunteers, and it is becoming increasingly difficult to recruit volunteers and maintain active membership rosters. Limited active rosters and geographical size of the county combine to hamper the department's ability to adequately respond to daytime calls. Thus, we are seeing the need to hire part-time firefighters on a more regular basis. B, given their full-time job employment, family, and other obligations, volunteer members struggle to meet all of the training requirements imperative and expected for active duty firefighting. Fire departments, like both public and private organizations, struggle with increasing costs for both operational and existing needs. The changing nature of response requirements and the growing expectations of the public are necessitating greater emphasis on communication between the fire department and the citizens they serve. Limited staffing available for operations can deprive departments of sufficient time to devote to the oversight of the department's finances. Regrettably, the absence of proper oversight may have been a contributing cause as to why members of 2 fire departments have been indicted for financial negligence in recent years. Staffing challenges do not negate the fire department's fiduciary responsibilities. In recent years, the county and our fire departments have endeavored to establish better communications and improve coordination. We have revamped the fire commission, and yes, we have worked on it. And yes, the county needs to communicate better. But even in Friday's newspaper, it was reported when they were talking about fire tax that the fire tax is set by the public in the fire district. Folks, that is just incorrect. The fire tax, the tax rate is set by the Sampson County Board of Commissioners, and I don't know any way you can spend that to make it otherwise. And that kind of statement leads to misunderstanding and leads to people not having a lot of confidence in us when we try to have conversations. And do we think it was intended? Do we think there was anything malicious or vicious? No, but incorrect information like that to people that have limited exposure to what's going on just does not serve any purpose. So we all have got to do a better job. We have revamped the Fire Commission to provide an environment to open communications and collaborative discussions for the exchange of information about departmental needs and to convey citizen support. Much has been done and much more is needed to ensure we are proactively addressing needs based upon the full and accurate information. You hear lots of conversation. Nobody said we need to do this. Nobody is talking about levying the tax. But at the end, you hear where somebody will come in and says, well, this particular county, they've got a 10-cent across-the-board county fire tax. And it's a legitimate discussion to have here. But please read the second sentence in the last paragraph. An opinion is not offered here regarding the amount of tax. However, we can advise that such a level of tax would provide the fire departments collectively an amount of funding that is equivalent to 16% of the county's budget. If this occurs, the amount of funding provided to the fire departments would be comparable to other major areas of budget funding: school operations, law enforcement, emergency services, and social services. As our citizens continue to experience cost increases with their own household budgets, they are increasingly scrutinizing how their tax dollars are expended. Any consideration of such funding levels for the fire department should therefore be accompanied by reciprocal obligations of transparency and physical oversight. While the fire departments desire flexibility regarding their operations, it will be imperative that departmental equipment needs be assessed and coordinated collectively to maximize efficiency and affordability. Greater transparency regarding the department's expenditures will ensure public trust, and a move to require a full annual audit for each fire department versus a compiled financial statement. At this point in time, we do have several fire departments that do audits, but for the most part, I think, David, all we get is the compilation. And so that sort of sums up the issue with fire departments. Do we appreciate the fire departments? Yes. Would we be in a hole without them? Yes. Do we need them to be proactive and partners with the county for many years to come? Yes. But they, like everything else that we do, that is going to have to evolve, and they're going to have to be receptive to the feedback we offer as much as we should be receptive to the feedback that they provide.
They are invaluable and irreplaceable. And of course, by and large, they do a great job, and more emphasis is put on them each day to act, and the volunteers are falling out. We're not getting that many volunteers anymore. But the restrictions for certification and training is getting more and more complicated. And so if we could get Raleigh to work with us a little better, that would be some help. But I agree, they do a great job, and we need to work together and try to get the job accomplished. But it's going to take both parties, the county and everybody understanding this compromise both ways.
Decision-making obligations. The Board of Commissioners and the county staff have the obligation to serve the entirety of the public, and their decisions should reflect that obligation to do so. Compromise, by definition, means a settlement of differences reached by mutual concessions. Compromise does not mean giving the other entity with whom you are negotiating everything that they request in the time frame that is demanded. There have been times when the Board of Commissioners have been criticized for taking no action when they actually responded to a concern by taking action that was in everybody's best interest and not just a few. The last paragraph, we talk about the website. I cannot tell you, overemphasize how important we think that website is. Believe it or not, I've reached the summary. The future of Sampson County is bright. Some of our reasons include we're strategically located along I-40. We've invested in economic development. The general fund balance and audit as of June 30th, 2023 clearly demonstrates the county's commitment to responsible and effective government. The county's commitment to its human infrastructure demonstrates an understanding of the importance of all employees. In addition, the county has been fortunate to acquire some very good leaders in recent years. The positive impact of these selections will provide the impetus for continued good government for many years. So those that think I might be talking about you, I'm picking on you. So step up to the plate. And you're doing a good job of it, so I'm not inferring you're not. 5, politics does have a place in county government as well as any other similar governmental public body. Generally, the idea of politics is to set the overall tone or general guidance for government. We see this most frequently demonstrated among agendas that range from conservative to moderate to liberal. For the most part, Sampson County has utilized politics in effectively setting the tone of government. Our commissioners to this point and for many years to come must utilize the principles of good governance to yield positive outcomes. The success of future boards will depend on their ability to maintain this approach of good and effective government. Moving forward in the short term, we are going to have to determine how we will balance revenues and expenditures. This is not going to take 1 year, it's going to take us several years, Ms. Lee. Some of the things to think about, because what you're going to do, and what I would hope the public will read, is you've got divergent things that come in when you're trying to balance a budget, and I'm going to list to you a few of them. Our recent audit indicates that the county has operated soundly from a financial perspective. This statement is not intended to suggest that further improvements cannot be made. Yet an audit that identifies no material weaknesses and a strong general fund is impressive. Sampson County has the second largest geographic area in North Carolina. There are additional costs associated with a landmass this large. If we don't believe it, we can talk to emergency medical services, we can talk to the fire departments, we can talk to the sheriff's office, and they'll be glad to help us understand that. County government should emulate good business practices as much as possible. At the same time, there are distinct differences between the operations of a private business and a governmental unit. Governmental units are often required to provide services that are mandated by the state and federal laws. So you just can't routinely shut down everything you want to. You've got some things that the law requires you just got to keep. And when the pressure on those departments increases, the more demand that there is. Thus, counties do not have the option of eliminating some costly programs during periods of economic decline. Number 4, the demand for governmental services often increases during periods of economic decline or slow growth. County governments are limited in the services that they can restrict. This can constrain the ability to adjust to circumstances without exercising the full range of available options. Likewise, maintaining reasonable reserves is particularly important to large counties. Number 5, limiting the size of government or decreasing the size of government cannot be effectively accomplished without restricting the growth of the larger departments, i.e., law enforcement, social services, and emergency services. Many of the social service programs are mandated by law and become even more critical during challenging times. The cost of providing emergency medical services is expensive and further exacerbated by the large geographic area that we serve. We live in perilous times. The importance and need for law enforcement has never been greater. We do have several departments that provide services that are not mandated by state law. However, if one looks objectively at the cost benefits of these departments, you may find that the overall effectiveness is extremely efficient when compared to the money spent and benefits achieved. One person's waste is another person's constituency or advocacy group. So this is the thing that we have in the county. Because of the variety of services offered and the fact that many are mandated by law, it will be extremely difficult to enact permanent across-the-board cuts efficiently and effectively. In our changing world, technology is becoming increasingly more important and expensive. In the long term, the investment in technology may reduce the need to expand our employee base. In the short term, technology will have an increasing cost. Number 9. We are attaching the May 23rd, 2022 memo, a historical perspective regarding the budget. And I would submit that everybody might want to look at that and look at the summary in that thing, and probably the summation comments are just as true today as they were then. The county has diligently worked to be a good partner with the educational entities in the county. However, there is some data available that suggests that even with our increases, our educational expenditures may not be in keeping with statewide increases in needs. Number 11, the county in recent years has placed a great deal of emphasis and resources on economic development. The future prosperity of the county will necessitate continued emphasis in this area. We're kind of like the old dog that ran halfway into the woods, Miss Letha. It's just as easy to run on out as it is to turn around and go back home. People in governmental units get to choose their perspective regarding the circumstances they face. Metaphorically, one can choose to believe their bottle is half full or half empty. I believe the bottle representing Sampson County government is half full. At the same time, and this might be the most important statement in this whole message, we all must occasionally ask ourselves, when we get what we ask for, is that what was truly in our best interest? Okay? I leave you with one thought. When I have spent, along with David and others, we have spent countless hours putting this information together in trying to assimilate a document that would be useful now and could be used as good reference material moving forward. The more I think about it, the more respect and admiration I have for this Board of Commissioners with what you have been through. And I got to thinking about it, and this board represents to me what I consider to be a holly bush or a holly tree. Down on my farm, I've had all kinds of trees. I had a storm come through, Mr. Kivett, that every Leland cypress that I had planted was literally uprooted. I had several 100-year oak trees that were blown down. But I had holly bushes or trees that had grown up to about 35 feet, and the only thing that I could tell had happened is they just swayed back and forth. I couldn't even tell the leaves had been born off. So I would leave you with this thought. I consider the Board of Commissioners to be a pretty good, effective holly bush. So with that, I say thank you and for your time.
I, for one, appreciate that.
I appreciate it, we appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Causey. That's, could you repeat all that?
Yes, sir.
No, I don't think so. It's very informative, and very much straightforward. There's a lot for us to, study and, digest on this. And of course, I think our next meeting is June 3rd. We'll have a hearing on this, so the public will have an opportunity to speak on it. and we encourage that. You need to get your point across.
Two things.
Okay.
I do point out that we're meeting with the fire departments on Wednesday night, and I believe, Rick, that time has changed to 6:30, okay? We would invite you to come if you're available. The point that we have on all this, including the fire departments, we think people ought to have the right to advocate for whatever they want. What we want to do is create a level playing field where we're all talking about the same information and what we want. Once we can establish that, it makes it easier for the board to decide what, if anything, that you might want to do. The second thing I'll remind the board of is when you dismiss tonight, you want to recess to reconvene, is Brad still here, to May 28th, 11 o'clock at the Extension Building,
It's the 29th.
Wednesday, the 29th.
Recess the 29th.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Causey. Any board members got a comment? Not said? All right, well, I'll accept the motion to recess to reconvene on the 29th.
I move that we recess to reconvene on May 29th.
Got a second, all in favor? All right, we're in recess. Thank you.
Same time